Well, hello again and welcome to another episode of the Hyperion Adventures podcast. I'm Tom. As always, I'm with my wonderful, gorgeous, intelligent, hardworking, best mother in the world, and my wife and co-host, Michelle.
Oh, thank you, honey. Hi, everybody. Happy Mother's Day to everybody.
A very happy Mother's Day to everybody out there. Yes, we are recording this on Sunday, May 9th, 2021, Mother's Day of 2021.
Yes.
A very special happy Mother's Day to all the Disney moms out there. You all do so much to make our lives so wonderful. Hopefully you are being treated the way you should be this week because you guys are all fantastic.
Oh, well, I know I'm being pretty spoiled, so I am very lucky and thrilled.
So spoiled that Michelle is doing all the work on today's episode, just so you know. That's how I pay her off for Mother's Day. You know what, honey? It's Mother's Day. Why don't you do all the work for this week's episode?
You're funny. Actually, I did volunteer to try this one and try my hand at a different way of doing a park review.
Yes. Well, Michelle is going to, as always, do a wonderful job with that when we get around to it. I also wanted to wish a very happy Nurses Week to all those wonderful nurses, especially this year, who've taken such good care of us, have gone over and above as they do every single day. And Michelle is included within that. But so many of you out there who just are so very special and have helped us in so many regards, and especially this crazy year.
Yeah, it's a really unique, historic time in our planet. And so, yes, a salute to all the nurses. So thank you for all you do. And we all appreciate it.
We do. We appreciate
each other.
We appreciate you very much. Thank you so much for all you do for us this year, especially, but every year, every day. We can't say how much we appreciate you. And those mothers who are nurses that are out there, just like Michelle, double a special, recognition for you this week.
Do I get two desserts?
Yes. There we go. Extra glass of wine and an extra dessert for tonight for Michelle.
Now you're talking.
Thank you for joining us today. In the future, you can find us most everywhere you get podcasts. However, the very best place to find us is on our own website, HyperionAdventuresPodcast.com. And while you're there,
we actually put out a newsletter that you can sign up for.
That's true. We do put out a newsletter that's mostly just kind of the way to be a little bit closer to us, be a little bit more in the know, a little bit more involved in the Hyperion Adventures podcast world. And this week, I'm going to have some special things for you that you're going to get to see first on the newsletter. One I'm going to tell you about right now. The other one is you're going to have to wait and find out what it's about. It has to do with this show that's coming up here very soon. I'll tell you more about that in the newsletter. The other thing that will be coming out this week on the newsletter, and you will get to see this first, is I've put together a little slideshow video of today's topic, our return to Disneyland. I'm going to have a private link for you to the YouTube channel for you to check that out first before it goes out on social media, and it's out there for other subscribers to check out as well.
Yeah, it's great that you do that, and you do great work. And so you all won't want to miss this if you aren't already a subscriber. And first of all, thanks to those who are a subscriber to our newsletter. But if you haven't clicked that accept button, then please do that. You'll very much be happy that you're a Hyperion adventurer.
That's right. Well, all listeners are all Hyperion adventurers, but the newsletter, those of you who subscribe to the newsletter, you're just a little closer. You're just a little more involved. You just get stuff a little earlier than most everybody else. Now, what I was also going to say involved with this is that make sure if you want to get some of these things that are happening this week, be sure and sign up for the newsletter if you haven't already. Usually I put this out on Tuesday, somewhere middle of the day, depending on what coast you're in. It could be early in the afternoon on the West Coast, later in the afternoon on the East Coast. So if you want to be able to get this stuff this week, be sure and sign up for the newsletter before that point. But whenever you sign up for the newsletter, we will have great stuff out there for you.
Yeah, good point.
There we go.
That's awesome.
Another way to be close to us is on social social media. We have a lot of fun with a lot of you out there on social media. Please follow us on Twitter at Hyperion Podcast. By the way, I was looking earlier today. I think we're at 1,499 followers on Twitter. I'm jinxing us, but we need one more and we'll get to 1,500. But please follow us on Twitter. Also on Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest at Hyperion Adventures Podcast. As I mentioned, we do have a YouTube channel. If you want to subscribe to us on YouTube, just do a search for Hyperion Adventures Podcast, hit subscribe, and you'll know whenever we have a new video. And if you ever want to contact us for any reason, please hit us up at our Gmail account, HyperionAdventuresPodcast@gmail.com.
Yes, thanks for those of you who've written this week. We always love hearing from people. Love hearing just the hello, how you all doing, and happy wishes to us. And so we want to reciprocate to you all. But thank you for reaching out, and feel free to do that anytime you have a question about anything, or if you have a specific topic, any feedback for us. We love hearing from you.
Yes, for sure. Thank you very much. We love all the input from you, and the Gmail account is a great way to be in touch with us. Another great way to be involved with us is through reviews. Reviews help us in so very many ways. One, they let us know how we're doing as a show, but also they're a way, that there's these algorithms out there. That's stuff that I don't quite understand. But when we get better reviews, no, there's very little that I really understand. I mean, I'm sure you know that already. If you've listened to the show, you definitely know that. But there are these algorithms out there that as you get more reviews, when people are doing a search for Disney podcasts or something that is similar to what they might enjoy, the ones that get more reviews kind of pop up more along those lines of searches. And so we appreciate every single review. And we did get another review this week.
Yay!
Yes. And so happy it was another 5-star review, which we really appreciate. This one was titled So Fun. I have been listening to many Disney podcasts for several years and definitely have my favorites. I found this one a couple of weeks ago and have gone back and listened to many episodes. Hopefully not some of those early episodes. A little shaky. I appreciate their enthusiasm, knowledge, and lighthearted banter about everything Disney, and that has easily put them in my top 3. Wow. And I look forward to listening to them every week. Top 3. That's pretty darn good.
I'm so honored. Yes, thank you.
You are my Disney people, and I wish you magical continued success and happiness. Stay well too. And that was from Haley 317 from Canada. Little bit of international flair there. Thank you, Haley 317, for that really sweet review.
Yeah, merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup.
No, but thank you so much. That was lovely. And again, we're very honored and appreciate that lovely feedback.
Yes, that was really sweet. And just like with Haley there, if you give us a review, we will be happy to share them on an upcoming show. As for this week's show, we have lots of stuff for you, including we learned about some guest favorite park spots on both coasts that will be reopening soon. Yay. We'll talk a little bit about that. And we found out a few details about what's to come during the spooky season. Some exciting news there that we look forward to talking about as well. But let's get right to our main topic of the week. So yes, we were so excited about what happened last week, and we couldn't wait to tell you about it this week. Well, I guess we could wait a week because that's how long it took for us to tell you about it. But yes, it's our return to Disneyland for reopening weekend, and we'll be recapping the entire trip. And Michelle took it upon herself that she wanted to take charge of this after I did basically the last 2 weeks of recaps, kind of took a hold of that. Michelle wanted to talk all about this one. So Michelle is going to lead this discussion today and looking back at all the fun that we had a week ago today, as a matter of fact.
Yes. And so looking forward to sharing with you some of the things we saw, giving some input on things, and our general impressions, and hopefully more information that'll be beneficial to you all. But it was exciting, and we are going to look at some of the new processes that they have in place. But before we get into the details of the day, I think that you and I, honey, will both agree it was a magical time.
Magical and emotional. I was I was glad I was wearing sunglasses for a good portion of the day, because there were several points that I teared up, because it was so wonderful to be back at the happiest place on earth after 14 months plus away. And even that 14 months point, we were only there in the February for a really short time,
Right.
expecting that we'd be coming back, many
Right.
times. We just popped in for what was the Disney California Adventure Food and Wine Festival at that point, just to sample a few things.
Right.
So they were doing a soft opening, thinking, oh, we'll be back in a few weeks, have a great time.
Yeah, bought our lanyards.
Yeah.
With the tag.
Well, that didn't happen. So it was, it was so great to finally be back.
Yeah, it really was. So, kind of in, we're not going to go to the details of this happened and then that happens, kind of more categories. And typically, we wouldn't talk about parking, but I have to say that in this particular visit, we had some unique pixie dust sprinkled on us for our initial entry back.
Yeah. Totally unexpected.
Right.
We weren't, as far as I know, this isn't happening every day. It just happened for us this morning.
Right. Yeah. So we were actually granted free parking. I don't know how many people were given that way or why it happened. I don't know if there was a generous person in the cars ahead of us that paid for several people, or if Disney did this. One of my friends did go the day before and said that didn't happen. So I think we were pretty fortunate to have that experience right from the start.
Yeah, we were all ready. We had, our Chase Visa out, ready to
Right.
go pay for our parking, our $25. And yeah, of course, we don't really want to pay for parking because we've had annual passes for a while that included free parking. Well, included free parking as
Right.
we pay so much for those annual passes.
Right.
But so it was okay. We have to pay for parking now. Fine. We're just happy to be returning.
Yes.
But then that was, like you said, that was just a wonderful little dose of pixie dust to get our mornings begun.
Right. So again, for anybody going to visit, I don't think that's something to be expected, but I did want to, share with you
And
all.
thank whoever
Right.
did that, whoever flipped the bill. Thank you very much.
Exactly. So we did arrive pretty close to park opening. I'm not the most prompt person in the morning. But, they did have some temporary queuing for people who arrived there early at the opening, and it's just to accommodate the physical distancing from the parking lot to the actual gates and things. So that was kind of fun and unique. I think we looped around different trees and different things in the actual parking area, not in the parking lot, but outside the parking lot where you would normally be boarding for some of the trams and things. So that was pretty funny.
Yeah, just like at Walt Disney World right now, they don't have the parking lot trams running. They also don't have them at Disneyland. So what you're doing is you're parking at the Mickey and Friends parking garage there, going down, and then you're winding through this queue throughout the Esplanade right there in front of between that and the Pixar Palace parking garage. You do go into where you normally would have caught the tram, and that's where you go through your temperature screening and your security check through there. And then you wind through, and then you end up walking all the way to the parks through the path that would have where the trams would normally have run.
Right. So it was interesting. The security check was more standardized from pre-COVID times compared with what we saw at Walt Disney World. So they actually did open up and look at bags and backpacks and things like that. So that was interesting. So just for people to be aware of that process, if they've gone to Disney World, it is a little bit different. But from there, we went to Disney California Adventure Park. That's where we had our entry part of our park hopper, and we talked about it. It was probably one of the best ways to keep our emotions in check, because even though during the day it was, at times I know that even when I tried to thank cast members for being there, I'd get choked up and trying to get the words out. But I at least I think going to California Adventure Park made it a little bit easier on getting too overly emotional at the start. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit. I mean, it was just getting back there and just seeing everything, especially when you walk into the Esplanade there between Disney California Adventure Park and Disneyland Park. It's right there. I mean, they're within sight of one another so easily. So it's just taking all that in. But then, walking through the turnstiles there and getting in and walking down Buena Vista Street. And it was yes, I think it did keep it in check a little bit from, because believe me, and we'll get into this when we got to the actual Disneyland later in the afternoon, my emotions took another level, but thank goodness you're right. It probably was better that we broke into it slowly by going to Disney California Adventure.
Exactly. And just to try to give somewhat of a visual, even though this is not a visual medium that we're going through right now, but to try to explain to people who have never been to Disneyland Resort. So if you were to think of at Walt Disney World where the train station is and the distance between that and like where the boat ramp is from the boats that take you from the parking area, that's about the distance of the entrance gates between Disneyland Resort and Disney California Adventure Park Resort. It is walkable. It is very easily walkable, And so I think that's why, park hoppers have a big attraction here in the West Coast, is just because of that ease. I mean, before when, we had the annual passes before COVID, it was pretty fluid. Sometimes we'd go back and forth multiple times.
2 or 3 times a day.
Right. Yeah. It's just so easy.
And you also, back in the day when you could use, if you had Max Pass or, you could, even if you're in the other park, you could get a fast pass for the other park if you had a park hopper. So you'd be in Disneyland and you'd make a fast pass through Max Pass with for the Radiator Springs Racers or whatever, and then you just head over and do that, and then maybe you did one at Disneyland, you'd head back. I mean, it was a lot of walking if you did that, but it was something you could do if you so desired. Yeah.
Right. It's not like the distances that you see at Walt Disney World between parks. This was pretty close.
Not at all.
Right.
Close.
And so the park hopper policy here at Disneyland was very similar to the one at Walt Disney World. I think the one major difference is that you can do it earlier. It's 1 o'clock versus 2 o'clock. And you can also then make your attempt for the virtual queue for Rise of the Resistance, which earlier, and we'll talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
So I don't know if park hopping will return at Disneyland the way it was before, but right now I think it does make sense with everything that's going on in the reopening to keep it where it is more like a set time of the day that it becomes available.
Yeah, it made total sense to me how it worked out, and it actually worked out really, really well for us because, yes, we were kind of able to enjoy our morning over at Disney California Adventure Park, get plenty of time in there, and then head over to Disneyland later and had a really, really wonderful afternoon at Disneyland.
Right. All right, so let's just talk about attractions and kind of like between both parks and everything. It wasn't surprising that we saw the safeguards in place that they had at Walt Disney World, that they carried those throughout the parks here. And I was really impressed and amazed at how people were extremely compliant with those social distancing markers. And, maybe it's just because it's still very new, here in California to have these parks open, but people were very much aware of and watching those. And, kind of like if they went forward and the line stopped, they found their closest one and backed up. So it was pretty impressive, first of all, in that regard.
Yeah, I think that on both coasts, I think even at Walt Disney World, we've seen most people do very well with the social distancing, the physical distancing over there. However, there has been, I would say there's a little bit more looseness to it over there, whereas, and again, you're probably right, and it may be because it's so new for so many people, they haven't experienced this in so long, and so they are sticking to a lot of the rules here in California, and they are watching the lines and where they're saying, and they are stopping more. Again, it wasn't perfect everywhere, just like it's not perfect at Walt Disney World, it wasn't perfect at Disneyland either, but I think that people were paying a little more attention to it.
Yeah, more observant of it. So just in general, in terms of the amount and variety of attractions that were available to guests at both parks opening, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, there's some things that obviously we miss that they can't have shows right now and everything. But I thought that, most of the attractions were available. The one thing that you'll find about, I think Disney California Adventure, especially right now before the new land opens, Avengers Campus opens, that their attractions, the number of attractions they have there, is pretty much on par with what you find at most parks at the Walt Disney World Resort. Disneyland Park, though, has a lot of attractions in a small amount of space. So I think that kind of helped, and I'm sure we'll discuss this a little bit as far as, getting people into various queues and making the park maybe not seem as full as it really was. I don't know, but it was, I thought there was plenty to do.
Right, exactly. I thought that they had, a vast amount open, first of all. And I think, a few obviously that couldn't open right now during the pandemic, and there were a couple that were being refurbished. We know that the Jungle Cruise is being reimagined. Matterhorn is going through some refurbishments and things like that. So more will come available too. But I also felt like there was a nice variety. So there were things that little kids could enjoy. There was, the roller coaster ride. So I think they had at both parks such a great blend of what would be available to cover any population that was coming in there, whatever their likes were. So
yeah, I mean, we found plenty of stuff to do. And as a matter of fact, I don't know if you're going to touch on this, but our plans changed significantly of what our day we expected it was going to be.
Right. That's my next note here is in my show notes here is that, I think we've talked about it on the podcast in the past that we're not typically attraction heavy. We go in, we'll do some of our favorites, or depending on what's available easily during the day, but we tend to just soak up the environment and enjoy people watching or food tasting and things like that. But with the limited capacity here, we just couldn't resist the short time frames for some of these queues that in the past, especially ones that wouldn't have a fast pass, that they were a much more reasonable time.
Yeah, I mean, at Disney California Adventure Park, as I mentioned, they have a few less attractions than Disneyland does. So there were a few longer wait times there for some of the more popular attractions, like the Radiator Springs Racers, like later in the day, Soarin', Toy Story Mania was a little bit, got a little bit longer as well. But Disneyland itself, I don't think I ever saw during the day we were there anything that got over 40 minutes. And the 40 minutes was a padded time.
Yes.
There were a couple times that we got into queues that were 35 minutes, and I think we were in 10.
Right.
I mean, I'm not saying that was every time.
Right.
But that happened a couple of times. And, I think a lot of that is because, yes, it's limited capacity, but there still are so many attractions open that they can spread these people into their people eaters, that they can all go into these various different queues. And it really, really worked out well. And I think we after we got done, we counted it out on our drive home and compared what we did in one day at Disneyland and Disney California Adventure to what we did the entire vacation we spent in April out at the Walt Disney World Resort. We did more attractions in that one day than we did the entire trip. Now that is partially on us, the fact that we don't, like you said, aren't attraction heavy. We don't tend to go, if we see a queue that's going to be 45 minutes or more, unless it's an attraction we really, really desperately want to do, we tend to be like, yeah, that's okay. There's plenty of other good stuff for us to do. We don't need to wait 45 minutes for whatever ride it is. And so we'll tend to skip that a lot of times. And that we just didn't run into that at Disneyland. Right.
Well, even at Disney California Adventure, I think we lucked out being there early. So if somebody is planning a trip, that we got onto Soaring very quickly, and then same thing with Toy Story Mania. It was almost a walk on for that, but like you said, as soon as that one ride was, we went through it, when we checked again, it was a much longer queue. So time for people to actually get into the park, and it was a Sunday, so sometimes we have seen in the past people arrive there later anyways, but and I know that you clocked our walking distance, and I think we did pretty significant amount of walking too.
We did like 26,000 steps in a day, I mean, something like that. Something.
I think you were saying what, like a 15K or 20K?
Yeah, it came out to I think it was more than a 15K. I know that. We ended up doing as far as how many miles we ended up walking. So that's more than 9 miles of walking during the day. And part of that was, and this is going to get into part of my tip later on. Part of that is we had to walk at least a mile from the parking garage to the parks, and then back from the parks to the parking garage.
True. And I think that maybe as people arrive later in the day, that that congestion at the beginning is probably minimized so that you don't have to go through the loops. Because I think even of course we left at the end of the day, but it just seems like that's because there's so many people coming at the opening that they have to come up with a way to keep the separation in place. So if you were to probably arrive there at 10:30, 11, you probably wouldn't go through all those queues the same way.
Right. It depends, but we definitely, as people showed up later on, I'm sure it was a much quicker walk to the spot for sure. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So, but sticking on with attractions, there were actually some new things that have happened since the closure for over 400 days, and the first one I want to talk about is Haunted Mansion. Mm-hmm. Now, first of all, part of that is just the logistics of the attraction, because the stretching room was actually designed to lower people to another level, like a giant elevator. And that was where it brought you to where you would board the dune buggies. So the fact that we weren't all being moved to the dead center of the room and going through that stretching room part, they did have to come up with another pathway, another way to get people actually to the boarding location. What were your thoughts on how they managed that?
I actually thought it was really fascinating, and I would be curious to know if it's this way all the time. But it's kind of we got taken to kind of a secret side staircase that goes down, and then they have a lot of different knickknacks and everything kind of lining the walls. They have some of the portraits of the people that you see in the stretching room lining the walls as well. And one thing that we saw throughout this trip to Disneyland is that, and that's because of the California regulations right now, is that they're trying to limit your time inside.
Right.
So a lot of the queues were outside, and then once you reached where you would be inside any building or inside any queue or even of the building, you pretty much zipped from there on in because they wanted you to move briskly through that, not wait for a long time in any part of that. And that included here. Once you got into the hallway within the Haunted Mansion, you pretty much zipped all the way to your doom buggy. And it was really interesting. And again, there was things like they had, like if you've ever seen like Downton Abbey, and there's those bells that they ring depending on which place they're calling the servants to. There was like a line of bells there, like for the Gracie Manor there, as far as, and just a few other things that were really fascinating. And I'd love to know if they are there all the time for those people that for whatever reason need to be escorted in or escorted out through that, or if they just really went in and put on the extra show for this, knowing that people were going to have to be going through this staircase instead of the normal stretching room way.
Sure. Well, I mean, in the Disney Park blogs, even months ago, had reported that there were going to be some hauntingly new features, and some of the things that when I was researching this, that they did bring back some things that were in the original, or improvements of some of the things that were in the original walkway in the Haunted Mansion. And some of the things that were there, they added some technology to. I mean, we were noticing when we were walking down the main hallway just before you get into the Doom Buggy, the different type of pictures they had, and portraits and lighting and things like that they had added to that that you got to appreciate as you were going into this in a different way. So I think you're right that some of this was a little bit new for this, but I do think they had some things that maybe were in the background, whether it was kind of like storage or rotating things through and whatever. So
I also thought in the attraction itself, you could tell that they had taken some time and maybe freshened up some paint and everything. Everything seemed a little more luminescent than it had in the past. Like they really put a gleam on it. They took all that time that Disneyland was closed and put a little shine on all the different elements in many attractions, but definitely within the Haunted Mansion.
Yeah, it made things more noticeable, things that you might just walk by and not take that catch your attention. It was much more so in that regard.
I think we noticed like a new portrait that we'd never seen before within the attraction itself. When you're in your Doom Buggy, that I'm like, I don't think that wasn't there in the past. I don't remember ever seeing that before.
Right. Well, there was an original portrait that was taken out, earlier in this decade, actually, I think I read that it was, around mid 2000s. But anyways, it was something that would go from a woman that was
Right.
young and then to where she was just a skeleton. And that was one of the early portraits that were in there. But the way the technology had developed, it made it look so choppy that they took it out. And so now with newer technology, they refurbished that and were able to provide that. So
Yeah.
it's kind of a nod to the original attraction.
Yeah, that's not the one I was talking about,
Oh,
but we did
okay.
see that one as well, and that we did. I remember seeing it and saying, "Oh yeah, that one's back." And
Yeah.
I love the transformations on the portraits as you're
Right.
heading towards your doom buggy, and that was one that we'd been missing, and it's good to see it back. for
Right.
sure.
I mean, one of the things on the outside that they added was a pet cemetery. So, like a graveyard area that really showcased the dearly departed pets. So that was kind of cute that they added that. So, anyways, I thought all in all, the Haunted Mansion was a great uplifting time to go through
Yeah.
it and see all those changes.
Yeah, Haunted Mansion. That was the one that I was telling you about. We got in line for 35 minutes. We're like, okay, if it's 35 minutes, the way they've been doing this was, with the kind of a cushion, a padding there, it's going to be 25 or 30 minutes probably. And it was like 10.
Right.
Right.
Well, I think that queue measures the people who can't go down the stairs, and you have to go through a different pathway for another type of elevator to take you down there. So I think probably that line is the one that
May
they're
have run a little
counting the
longer.
time frame
Gotcha.
for the posted queue. So. Another exciting new thing was the reimagined Snow White attraction.
Yes, that's Snow White's Enchanted Wish.
Right. So it went from the Snow White's Scary Adventure to, as you said, Snow White's Enchanted Wish. I know we were excited to be able to check that out finally. What were your impressions?
Well, first of all, I want to say it's the first time that the Snow White attraction has had a queue that has been around 25 to 30 minutes, which is what it was, which was still very reasonable for something that's brand new and people want to check out. And I thought it was magnificent. I love what they did. It's bright. It's brilliant. It's sweet. I thought it's wonderful. I thought it was a fantastic refurbishment of this attraction. And I'm just going to say it. Again, Seven Dwarfs Mine Train,
Right.
Snow White's Enchanted Wish. Look, I love the roller coaster aspect, the Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, but I'll take the Enchanted Wish any day. I think it's really well done. The projections that they've added, it just gleams. I've talked about this a lot, how everything's gleaming. This one really especially has a brilliant shine to it, and I loved going through it.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you. It doesn't have that roller coaster aspect. It is just one of the original kind of dark rides, kind of like you think of, Mr. Toad's Wild Ride or something like that. But I agree with you. I think from start to finish, it does a better job at storytelling and it flows. Whereas that's, I think, would have been my thing with the Seven Dwarfs Mine Train is it seems a little choppy at times of how they tell that story, whereas in Snow White's Enchanted Wish, to me personally, it was like telling the story of the book from, very fluid and very smooth, and it was cute,
right?
And I think anybody can appreciate it, and it did have, like you said, the gleaming. It had more, of the technology effects to make it much more modern.
Yeah. I thought it was perfectly done. And again, a lot of this has to do with the fact that if you go to Seven Dwarfs Mine Train and you're not there at rope drop, you're probably waiting a good 60, 70 minutes for this attraction. And yes, we waited longer than we normally would for the Snow White attraction within Disneyland, but it wasn't anything quite that length, yet the ride is about the same amount of time. It's one thing I have a problem with Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. And while I love it and enjoy it and have done it many times, it's a long wait for a relatively short attraction. It felt more, I don't know, equitable for the Enchanted Wish, what I'll say.
That's true. So my mom and I were talking about, Disney parks and attractions and, how to have that balance where you keep it reminiscent of things you've known all along and experienced and you don't want to see changed, but at the same time keeping it fresh. And that's what this did. It kept the historical components of that, early traditional kind of ride that a Disney park would have, but it was modernized and it made it more exciting.
Right. And it has more of a positive feel to it than the scary adventure. Could be a little, especially the end scene, where they're attacking the witch at the end of it. It can be a little frightening for children.
Right. Yeah.
I thought this was just more vibrant and beautiful. And like you said, the storytelling is really, really
right. And
well
it just
done.
really focused on her and Prince Charming.
Right.
And, so, all right. All right. So let's go on to Rise of the Resistance, which is something that we love forever,
We love, and yet we had not done it at Disneyland to this point. We've done it, I believe it was prior to this, 4 times at the Walt Disney World Resort. This was we were trying for our first opportunity to get Rise of the Resistance actually at Disneyland, because remember, it had only opened, I want to say it was about 2.5 months before the park closed down. That's how long it had been open. We had been to Disneyland a couple times and we thought about it, but we're like, because this was when you had to actually be there in the park to get it.
At 7 a.m.
We're not we're super close. It takes us a while to get there. And so we're like, we'll have plenty of times to visit Disneyland one of these days. As a matter of fact, I think the week after we got off our cruise, when everything went crazy, we were planning on spending the night being up there with family, visiting Disneyland with them.
Yeah, we had reservations.
Yeah, taking them to there. And that was going to be, this is going to be our day where we're going to do Rise of the Resistance. We'll get the whole family up. We'll get in the park. We'll all get Rise of the Resistance, hopefully. And, because they hadn't even experienced Star Wars Galaxy's Edge at that point either. So, I know, obviously that all went sideways. So, yes, this was going to be our first opportunity on the West Coast.
Right. So the ride itself is identical to pretty much to the one at Walt Disney World. So just wanting to look at the process, first of all, of getting, a boarding pass on that virtual queue. It is similar to Walt Disney World quite a bit, actually, but there are some differences. So very much like Disney World, your first opportunity is at 7 a.m. if you have a reservation at Disney, but 2 is at Disneyland, not at Disney California Adventure. So if you have your park hopper or one-day pass to Disneyland, you have that opportunity at 7 a.m.
As long as your park reservation is for Disneyland first.
Right. Yes. To try to get into that virtual queue. Same kind of thing. You use the app and, go fast, hope for the best, and things like that. The difference that's really cool here, and again, I think it's just because of the ability to park hop so easily, is that if you have a park hopper pass, or if you didn't get into the first booking, at noon, you can go to the app and try to get a boarding pass. So making it a little earlier. And again, you could do it if Disneyland wasn't your original park hopper entry point.
Right. So, or if you, like you said, if you didn't have it already, if you tried at 7 a.m., weren't successful, you were still in Disneyland Park, you could try, well, you didn't have to be in Disneyland, but you had a reservation or a park hopper for Disneyland Park. You could try at noon again.
Yes. So, fortunately, we were able to snag what do they call it? The backup group?
It was something like that. Backup boarding group.
Backup boarding group.
We can't promise you, and we can't actually even tell you, estimated time of when you might get on. But at least you have something that maybe if it all works out, you'll be able to get on.
Right. And we weren't really holding out hope, being that it was called that. And I think when we were before we got a boarding pass, you can see what groups are boarding. And it looked in the morning like it was, I don't know if they had some downtime, but it didn't look like the
didn't look like it was moving briskly in the morning.
Yeah. So we were like, oh, wow. The unique difference that we saw, and maybe it was just how we were doing the app or something, maybe it was user error, but we couldn't seem to find once we had our boarding pass, we couldn't see what groups were boarding on the app.
I think that, and it's hard to say, but I would believe that if you got a regular boarding group, that it would appear there what groups were boarding. When you had the backup boarding group, it didn't show up there. Now, I don't know if that's true or not because we didn't have a regular one, but everything else looked the same as what you get when you do Rise of the Resistance at Walt Disney World.
Right.
We just didn't know. So we would have to, every once in a while, head over. Not that it was difficult for us to go over to Batu, to Black Spire Outpost, because we hang out around there often. But we just kind of would wander over there and go look at the board where it said the boarding groups. I think there's some other places in the parks as well that you could find that out. But yeah, we would rather go and find out within Black Spire Outpost.
Yes.
So we would go over there and peek and say, how far are they? And at one point in the day, it's like, hey, maybe we can.
Yes.
It's not that far away. It's a possibility.
Right.
But, with this much time left for the parks to be open. That's another thing that weighed into this. If the park was open till 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. or whatever, it would seem like we have more time there. But since the park is closing at 7 p.m., you're like, okay, that's a lot to get in before 7 p.m.
Right, exactly. But lo and behold, some more pixie dust came our way, and we were able to get on at Disneyland for the first time, as you said, on Rise of the Resistance. And it was amazing.
As it always is. We got in about an hour before park closed, right about almost exactly 6 p.m.
Right.
Is when we got into it. We had stopped there for dinner over from Ronto Roasters and enjoyed that. And one thing is different from Rise at Disneyland, as I told you, they're trying to limit your time indoors in spaces. And unfortunately, and this is too bad for all those who haven't, this is their first time experiencing Rise of the Resistance, but I guess something to look forward to is there's that first room where you go into where there's, spoiler alert for those of you who have never been and don't want to know, there's the hologram, the Rey hologram and BB-8s in there.
Trying to get your briefing.
Right. And you're explaining what the mission is going to be. But they did take you into the shuttle ride, which we discussed it afterwards. If there's one of those, because again, trying to limit your time together in enclosed spaces, if there's one of those you had to skip, they probably picked the right one, which is the briefing, and because the shuttle ride, it feels like another part of the attraction, even though it's really kind of more pre-show than anything else.
Well, in the shuttle ride, they, as if you've been on the one at Walt Disney World, they have put up the partition, the plexiglass partitions too. So your party is together and somewhat enclosed together, whereas at the briefing room, you're just all together.
Right.
So I think that was probably too why they were able to let you have that part, even though it was indoors.
Right. But the good news is for those of you who right now, even though the ride's still fantastic, even without that first part of the pre-show with the briefing room, those of you who get to experience it now, you get to experience a great part of the ride, how exciting it is, all the wonderful little things. And then eventually you're going to get this other part that's going to be like this, make it even better for you. So something to look forward to in the future.
Look forward to is right. So, I mean, all in all, I think, we did a lot of the other attractions that we would typically, do and see at both Disney California Adventure Park and at Disneyland. Anything attraction-wise that we didn't cover that you thought, oh, this is a highlight or an important thing? Or
Peter Pan's flight in with only a 10 to 15 minute wait was amazing. We thought it was exciting when I think we got like a 25 to 30 minute wait at Walt Disney World. That's why we went out of our way to do it when we were there this one night.
Right.
This is the shortest I think we've ever waited outside of when it's been I think we did it at the Very Merry.
Right.
And it was near the end of the evening and it had been raining all day and it opened up and we were basically walk on. But as far as a regular day, 10, 15 minute wait for Peter Pan's flight is amazing.
Yeah. And I don't know, for some reason, and I know maybe I have biases, it just seemed better. I mean, we had just seen the one at Walt Disney World a couple weeks beforehand, and I don't know if it was something going on with the soundtrack at the one at Disney World. This one I felt had more interactive sound, not interactive, but the interactive with the character sound.
Yeah, I mean, what's one thing I'm going to say about the attractions is the fact that, even though Disneyland was closed for 14 months, and that's almost it really is devastating and really tough for the cast members, for Disney itself, for all the businesses around there. But, Disney did jump on this and take advantage of it, and they did as I mentioned, the Gleam, they put a lot of shine. They freshened up a lot of things. They were able to, get things working. They took this time where they couldn't have any guests in the park and used them to their advantage to make the attractions just shine a little more,
Right.
I think that's what, at least that's the way I felt. Maybe it was just emotion. Maybe it was just the emotion of being back there to me that made them feel like they shined more.
Right. Could be.
But that just the way they seem to me, and I think you agree.
Yeah, definitely. Most definitely. So, all right, let's move on to entertainment.
Okay.
And entertainment options, as we've said, and what we've seen at the other parks is that, crowd gathering entertainment wasn't going to be a possibility, but they did have some of the mini parades like we've seen at Walt Disney World. But there was also some other offerings that I thought stood out here that made it a little more unique, and mainly with the character greetings. And obviously, like at Walt Disney World, you can't go up and hug or touch the characters.
Yeah, physically distanced greetings.
Right.
Yeah.
But I don't know. To me, it felt closer. I felt like we were a little bit closer to them. You could actually have conversations.
With those that do.
Well,
talk.
even Nick Wilde was there, and he had a handler that was helping navigate through some of the conversations and things like that. And I just felt like that was really cool. We spoke with Snow White quite a bit, and I really
Goofy. Remember Goofy? We were on the second story of the double-decker bus, which is one of our favorite ways to go down Main Street, USA. By the way, and he was up on the train station, so we were like almost level with him because we were up in the upper deck, and while we were waiting for the bus to depart, we had some fun interaction with him.
Right. He definitely could hear us, and was reacting to some of the things, and I just felt like we had a really nice conversation with the Black Panther.
Oh yeah, that's true. Dora Milaje.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, even though you couldn't actually get that close, you could do selfies kind of things with them, but I really felt that they did an amazingly impressive job to have that interaction with the guest that I don't think I really saw as much, and maybe just because we weren't looking for that, or it wasn't as readily available as we see it here at Disneyland, but I thought that was a real plus.
I think, for one thing, I think that because of the fact that they weren't, I mean, yes, there were some characters doing some sort of stuff, but there aren't the regular cavalcades that are going on at Walt Disney World at all the parks. So the fact is, how they're getting more characters involved is placing them at these locations throughout where you can take selfies. The lines for most of them were fairly short, if non-existent at some. You just walk right up to right up to the characters, but up within physical distancing from the characters, and stay for some time because there weren't these long lines for them as well, and have conversations, as at whatever they were, and it was just really enjoyable. We took many pictures with many characters throughout the time we were there.
Right. I mean, and I think again, kudos to the guests that were there. Even when there was a line, people seemed to be respectful, not to prolong, but still have time to interact with the characters. And so it was, to me, that was very special and very magical that I wasn't expecting.
Yeah, it was a great time. We loved we so many characters that we went up to, others that we saw that we didn't quite go up to, where we just appreciated that they were there.
Right.
And it was just a good time for sure.
Yeah. Any other entertainment type things that stood out for you?
No, I did like that they had the, Marvel characters on stage there for you to get pictures with. We didn't get to take the picture with him because we were going, I think we went to Mickey's PhilharMagic, and by the time we came out, they had changed characters, but Captain America was on that stage. And then we went out, and actually it was wonderful, like you said, exchange with Black Panther, which was a lot of fun. And we got a great selfie with him and the Dora Milaje, and that was great. Very much, building the excitement for what's to come because we could, that was one of the things, we had lots of peaks we couldn't quite see in there, but we could peek over and around some of the walls there into Avengers Campus, which is coming very soon here. The excitement is really, really building for this new Marvel land. For sure.
Definitely. And at Disneyland, when we say stage, you can really pretty much, I mean, you could actually go up to the stage and the characters were, maybe 2 or 3 feet back there. I mean, not that anybody would, but it is much more intimate at Disneyland where the stages are set up that you can be closer to the action.
Right. And I feel Disneyland in the past, even before, has done a much better job of having characters available for you to get photos with, sometimes with decent cues, sometimes with not, and sometimes roaming characters. I mean, we can't do that really right now.
Right.
But in the past, I always felt Disneyland did a better job with their character interactions than maybe Walt Disney World does. Not that Walt Disney Worlds are bad, just that Disneyland was better.
Right. Yes, exactly.
So you wouldn't have to plan them out as much, get a fast pass, or you go into this building and wait in a queue or whatever. They'd just be around.
Sure. I know I'm using this word over and over, but I just feel intimate is what captures
Disneyland's
the essence.
always been more of the intimate parts.
Right. So.
Walt Disney World is the great vacation destination.
It's grandeur.
Disneyland is more of an intimate experience. Right. In our opinions.
Yes. All right, let's move on to dining.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we love eating.
I'm hungry right now.
I know. So, let's first talk about one of the things that, because our park hoppers started at Disney California Adventure Park, and this is something that we had researched beforehand. I think because most people do plan to go to Disneyland first, the breakfast offerings at Disney California Adventure Park are not as extensive.
Limited.
Yeah, they're very limited. Really, your only real choice is Starbucks has a restaurant there with mobile ordering, and they do have some breakfast fare, or churros, which is the breakfast of champions, right?
Yes. Especially at Disneyland.
Right.
The far better churro is at Disneyland.
Yeah. So, I think that's something to consider if you are going to Disney California Adventure Park first, is to understand, at least right now, and I'm sure things will continue to open more and more, but right now your breakfast offerings are going to be less than at Disneyland, and so plan accordingly.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the restaurants open at 11. There's a couple things that are at 10:30, but again, it's pretty minimal. I think it's one of the Cozy Cone places has some. I think you can get mac and cheese at 10:30 maybe, but most everything else opens at 11. So, making that planned so that you're, not starving till lunchtime there.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, whether you get there a little earlier and hit something at Downtown Disney, or just, make sure you have some food before you go in.
Right.
So you're ready to go if you don't want to wait, or if you're not wanting to have a churro as your breakfast.
Yeah, exactly. So we like what we saw. A lot of other people did go for that first bite of corn dog. The first thing, as soon as it opened, we had gone to Award Wieners, mobile ordering through the app, ordered our first corn dog in over a year. And that was fun to do that. I don't know. What was your thoughts?
Oh, the Disneyland corn dogs are the best. They are. I mean, I like corn dogs just fine, but it's hard to get them anyplace else and them to be on the same quality as the hand-dipped Disneyland corn dogs. They're so good. And we knowing we had lunch reservation planned for not that far after that, we just split one just because we wanted to have one, and it was really, really good.
Yeah. I mean, if anybody has an opportunity, I think for some reason, I think the ones at Disneyland is a little bit better. But we're going to be eating a lot of other food at Disneyland, so we figured we should do the corn dog at California Adventure Park. But all right, the next thing is we had lunch. As you said, lunch reservations. We lucked out on those early secret reservations that I somehow happened upon, which I think was a glitch, but it allowed it and it stuck. And we really did have lunch reservations at the Lamplight Lounge, which is so fantastic. It has such great touches of the Pixar films. I'm hopeful that in the future they incorporate Soul. I think that would be a great, however they could do that in this restaurant would be a great addition and definitely fit the feel that it has.
Yeah. Well, all the dining is outdoor, and actually all the dining everywhere right now at Disneyland is outdoor. I don't think there was any place that was open where you could dine inside. I mean, there were some places we saw a couple people inside,
Yeah,
but
you
as
could
far as
sit inside.
there weren't, it wasn't like a regular thing where people were dining inside. It was mostly everything was outside, and that included the Lamplight Lounge. They weren't doing any seating inside. It was automatically outside. A lot of the Pixar touches are more in the inner part and the restaurant inside restaurant part, which is it actually is fascinating to go in there and look at all the little memorabilia and stuff from the Pixar films that are throughout there. So maybe once we can get back inside and check it out, maybe they've added some of the Soul stuff as well, and Onward for that matter.
Or menu, right? Yeah. Maybe menu, maybe music. I mean, this restaurant is kind of unique. So it has. First of all, it has 2 outdoor seating areas, which they were using both. One is a higher level, and you're actually kind of able to look out, which is where we were able to see, the Midway area. We got to see Incredicoasters and
the whole Pixar Pier area.
Yeah, the whole Pixar Pier area. It's really kind of a great people watching area or just attraction watching area. And then their other outdoor seating is a lower level area that is outdoor, and it has different type of seating. Some of the ones we've enjoyed there is they have that kind of the high top tables with the fireplaces in the middle and
fire pit
in the middle. So and then what was, like you said, what wasn't available right now was the indoor seating, which is kind of a loungy look to it, but with this great memorabilia from Pixar movies, or not necessarily because those are cartoons, but artwork, etc.
Right. Yes, a lot of sketches and some other pieces of different things, some photos from when they went on location destinations and stuff. To kind of get an idea of like places like for Up and everything in South America, things like that. There's a lot of kind of all sorts of interesting things, even just going to the restrooms there and some of the stuff that's like they have quotes from the movies that are kind of sketched on the walls.
Right, little cartoon drawings on the walls and things too. So, we saw with all of the restaurants and even at Walt Disney World, the menu selections were reduced compared to the past, but fortunately, and we knew this going in, that lobster nachos was on the menu, and that was the dish for us. So
yeah, we got to, again, so long since we've had the lobster nachos at Lamplight Lounge. So a couple cocktails, couple umbrella drinks, and lobster nachos, and looking out at the Mickey wheel and the Incredicoaster and all of Pixar Pier, and it's just a great way to spend an hour or so during the day.
Right. And they do have, a well-stocked bar there. So even though they have like their own specialty drink menu when you arrive, that they give you that, you can go off the menu and ask, because we did, get something that was off the menu.
Yeah, just simple Mai Tai, because we that's kind of what we drink there for whatever reason. We've always gotten Mai Tais there, and so we were looking forward to having Mai Tais again, and that's what we have. But if you want like a gin and tonic or something else, they can whip one of those up for you really easily. Yeah.
So if you just to give you that kind of as a freebie tip, if you ever see that there's not what's hitting your palate at that moment in their drink selection, is you could go to ask for some other options as well.
Exactly.
So the other thing we did at California Adventure Park is we did go to Ghirardelli's. Am I saying that right? Ghirardelli's, and got a malt. In retrospect, I think the shakes at Flo's V8 Diner are superior.
Yeah.
And
they're good. They're good at the Ghirardelli.
Yeah.
But as far as just a shake, and it looks like they have some, really excellent sundaes.
Yeah,
there,
I think that would have been something we could have considered.
Or just plain ice cream. But I think Flo's does really well with their shakes. So it's one of the things they specialize in is their shakes. And so I would definitely go there.
Right. But the rest of the food, all the rest of the food we ate was at Disneyland. And I think one of, at least my favorites, I think you would agree, was getting Ronto wraps.
Yes. Always love the Ronto wraps. Definitely love the Ronto wraps.
Right. And one of the menu selections they have here, it's not at...
I think it is now. I saw the monorails, from the Morning Monorail podcast. They were just there, and they posted that they have the one you're talking about.
Oh, okay.
Now, so I think it's there now.
Okay, well that's awesome news. Yeah, so it's a plant-based Ronto wrap, and so what made it more unique from what was offered before only as a plant-based. It wasn't really just a salad in a pita bread. It was a plant-based sausage. They did have a kimchi slaw on it, which was fabulous. Great flavor, just enough heat. You know, I'm not one to go overboard with heat, and I just loved it. And I think you tried it too, right?
I tried it too. It was delicious. I would happily order it for myself as well. I mean, I got the regular Ronto wrap just because I'm a traditional kind of guy, which is always spectacular. But I really loved the bite that I took out of yours. I thought it really was well balanced. It does have some heat on it, so just be prepared for that. I think it was right on that edge for you. If it had been any spicier, it might have been tough for you. But it was
so flavorful.
Fantastic, delicious.
Right. Yeah. So would highly recommend that. And it's not like I am vegetarian or vegan or plant-based only, but I do like to try some of these options at times, or, try to, when you're eating a corn dog, have less guilt by saying, "Oh, let me try something plant-based later." Although
I have to say, some of these plant-based sausages or whatever, they sound like you're not doing it's guilt-free,
right?
But really, there's to get them to taste as good as they do,
right?
There's a little fat in there, so just be prepared for that.
Agreed. And I think the other thing, some of our favorite foods that we like, we couldn't leave without trying. And one of those other things was from Red Rose Tavern, which is the enchanted cauliflower sandwich. Now, this sandwich is, if you've never tried a cauliflower sandwich, it may sound bizarro and not appealing, but this is. And again, I love meat, so it's not like I'm just looking for these kind of plant-based menu items. But this, you have a nice toasted bun. You have it's a grilled
cauliflower
steak, and so it's kind of like the thickness of a burger, more or less. It's got some aioli on there. Again, not too much heat.
Lettuce, tomatoes,
and it is just phenomenal.
Yeah, I miss the old style of it where they had also like the tempura green beans on there too. Yes. But it's still pretty darn good just the way it is right now.
Right. So I think the funny thing was that we had eaten so much food that by the time we ordered that, we're like, okay, we would just be stuffing ourselves. So we ended up being able to enjoy it at home.
Right. So. Which it's funny because this is how desperate we were to get some of these favorite meals
I know.
that we love from Disneyland that we haven't been able to have in 14 plus months. Is that we're like, okay, well, yes, we're full, but we're still going to order more food and just bring it home with us, and then eat it. I think we ate it the next night, actually.
Yeah.
It's like we just got home and we're like, we'll just have some dessert and a glass of wine once we got done driving home.
Right.
Glass of wine, some dessert, and then we'll eat it the next day. And that's what we did, and still enjoyed it very much.
Right.
Yeah.
It was still having that little memory of our prior day at the park. So any food items that you miss that we didn't get a chance to try, or something you're looking forward to in the future?
Like you mentioned, the shakes from Flo's, I think are always really good. It's hard to say. I think we hit up almost everything we wanted. I think there were some specialty things that we didn't get to Jolly Holiday to have their special there, which is the grilled cheese and tomato soup, which we love as well. And then a lot of times they have some pastries that are fascinating and fun. They didn't have the gingerbread man, at least we can tell. We were trying to look in there and see, but there was a line to go in the shops as the day was wrapping up, and we're like, we don't need to wait in that line. So a few things that we didn't get to experience this time, but we're going to be there in just a few weeks again. So maybe we'll pick up a couple of these things when we go. Right.
I mean, there's, some of the, table service type things that we didn't really take time because we knew this was going to be one of those days that we just wanted to try several different things. So, I think looking forward to Carthay Circle doing, their outdoor seating. Their menu looks really fabulous. And even over at Disneyland, some of the dining, I know they don't have all of it, but they have most of the outdoor dining areas available. That looking forward to try those as well.
Yep. Hopefully we'll get back. We only have one day on the books right now, but maybe there'll be a couple more days that'll pop up later in the year that we get to go back.
Yeah. So all right. So that's all about food, unless there's something else that you think I missed.
Nope, that's pretty good.
All right. So, not really planning to say too much about the crowds. It is only at 25%. And you've already brought up how, what we call people eaters, the shows that people go into a building, and that wasn't there. But even without that, it still didn't feel like crowded. I mean, it didn't feel like we were like sometimes when we've been in the past, especially during holiday season, where you're just feeling like you're barely making it through through the areas and things like that. What were your thoughts?
I definitely never felt crowded anywhere. Disney California Adventure, a little bit more. We saw a few more people walking around there. Again, fewer attractions there to kind of take up people and put them in queues. So it felt a little more crowded there, but still nothing compared to what we've seen at other times. Disneyland itself seemed... and outside of where there were actual queues, because you have to queue up outside of these attractions, out into some of the, the pathways and streets or whatever. There, it seemed a little bit there, but for the most part, we were walking through areas that seemed very, very empty to me compared to what we're used to, especially at Disneyland itself.
Right. I think Tomorrowland caught my eye. Some of it is because, like right now, there's a couple things that aren't open, but where Star Tours is, typically that area was always super congested because one, it would have an area that was filled with strollers, and then in that same area, they would have seating just for people waiting for, for other people or whatever, because there's bathroom areas in there. And it usually is just so crowded there.
Yeah, they have to direct people often to you go on this side if you're going this way, or you go on this side if you're going the other way, because it gets so packed in that space.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that to me was like, wow, that area was easy to walk through, so that was kind of cool. So
yeah. I agreed completely.
All right, let's talk about some of the emotional things.
It was all of it. I was emotional.
I know. Just when you got out of the parking, or actually through the security, and you saw the welcome back sign, that was obviously something very touching for us. And for me, you kind of alluded to it when we first went into Disneyland in the afternoon, taking the double-decker bus down. Something that we always in the past loved and truly missed that. It's one of those things. It's just such a simple little pleasure that just can touch your heart. But what were some of the things that, really captured you for the feels?
The first time we walked through the turnstiles and just went down Buena Vista Street there, I mean, that was, just feeling like we were back, that was part of it. Then just going on our first attraction, which ended up being Soarin', which Soarin' to me, isn't like this. It's not like the Haunted Mansion or whatever. It's not one of these classic attractions that, I enjoy it. It's not one of those things but it was just like we're on an attraction at Disneyland again, so I, and seeing Patrick over there giving our flight instructions, and there was just something about that, getting to Pixar Pier and seeing the Mickey wheel and all of that, and Cars Land, and because Cars Land is a very special place that is very, it's only here on the West Coast.
It's so immersive. Yeah. There's no other, other than like at Universal with Harry Potter area, this is it's so immersive.
It's pretty good. I don't know if it's as good as Harry Potter, but that's so immersive, but it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Batu too, really, really good. But this, if you want to plop yourself right in the middle of a movie, it's probably one of the best places you're going to find it at a Disney park that we visited anyway. And Disneyland itself, I mean, getting in there, the train station, the sign that welcomes you, to the land of fantasy, tomorrow and beyond. So good. Walt's lamp still being lit, was lit the whole time the park was closed. It's still lit up in his apartment, still ready to go. The castle at the end, I know people will talk about it, it's the teeny castle, and it is the teeny castle, but it's still the castle. It is the original castle. It's Sleeping Beauty Castle.
Right.
And it really struck home with me getting to see it, and it was just as shiny and beautiful as I remember it.
Right.
Just stuff like that.
Well, like you're saying, with everything having a little bit more gleam to it, it is the tinier castle. They seem to really, over the past, I would say the past probably like 5 years maybe, have done so much to highlight it differently. And I can't really explain it, but whether it's the use of colors and, obviously there's the forced perspective component of it, but they really do have a way of making it seem so much more attractive than, ever before, at least.
It's
from
great.
what
It's
I can
beautiful.
remember.
I love it. Those of you who haven't experienced it, and even some of you who have, may complain about it being the tiny castle, and it is.
It is.
But it's still my home castle, and I will always be in love with Sleeping Beauty Castle.
Right,
for sure.
right. I think once, having had the experience of only seeing Cinderella Castle forever and then coming here for the first time, it was like a kind of a shock.
Yeah.
I don't want to say let down, but it was just
it's something you have to prepare for.
Yes.
You have to know that that's what it's going to be.
Right.
But just enjoy it for what it is.
Right. And once you have that mindset and realize the history behind it and everything, and the fact that it does actually have a drawbridge, it is a real drawbridge, or in a moat and things like that. It's just, then you can appreciate the fun behind it.
For sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Any surprises for you?
How short the wait times were at Disneyland. I'm just not
Yes.
used to that at Disneyland itself. I mean, Disneyland was always the more crowded park
Right.
of the two. Disney California Adventure Park, not that they don't have lines for some of the attractions that were always long. It just is rare at Disneyland to have such short wait times for some of the bigger Space Mountain, Haunted Mansion,
Right.
Big Thunder. It was like 5 minutes all day
Yes,
almost. It was
right.
like crazy. It's like Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run, where like when we went on it, it was 5-minute wait time.
Right.
And it's
right.
just, you just don't run into those things unless you go at rope drop for a lot of
Right.
these attractions. And yet it was going on all day there. That was
I
surprising.
know. Yeah, that you're right about that, because that's still, they're doing where it's just one family going in at a time, and we were able to, like you said, just walk. I mean, we were briskly walking through the long queue. It was, kind of comical and
Yep.
stuff. So, yeah. Anything that you would recommend on like how to approach it? Like if you were to do it different, would you do it differently?
I just would have been prepared that we're going to be an attraction heavy day. It was not what I was expecting,
Right.
So that is, if you're, and this is possibly going to change as the capacities change. But right now, if you're planning on going in these next couple weeks, or at least while it's still at this capacity, and you're going to Disneyland, especially Disneyland Park, expect that you can get, you could do every single attraction in a day and it wouldn't be difficult at all.
Right,
Which is
right.
just a rarity at Disneyland because
Yeah.
they have so many of them. I mean, and obviously there are a few that are closed, but right now you could do all of them and multiple times because the wait times
Sure.
are that short. Even though some say they're 30 minutes or whatever, most of them aren't. You can, and even that is like, wow, it's only 30 minutes for Space Mountain. It's
Right.
crazy.
Yeah,
So.
exactly. Yeah, I think the only thing that I would recommend is, well, first of all, if you really only want to spend, not to spend the additional money on a park hopper, then I could see you doing, just Disneyland. You could have like you said, you could get everything done. And yes, you could get everything done in a short time, but you could also take your time and do from, like 9 or 10 till closing, like at, 6 or 7 o'clock, get so much in and really get to enjoy it and not be too worn out
Right.
either, And if you're going to do a park hopper, I would say start at Disneyland, kind of get all that experience, and then go to Disney California and kind of just on a lower key end your trip there.
Yeah, I mean, it just depends on what you wanted to do. I love the way we did it. I thought it worked out perfectly the way we did it. We got California Adventure. We went early, so we could get on some of these attractions
True.
that had some of the queues that were longer, and get them before they got too long and
Right.
get on them. Lunch at Lamplight Lounge, everything else like that, and then we went over to Disneyland and we were able to go ride.
That's
Which
a good
was
point.
it kind of worked out well for us. So maybe that's more. It's what's best for you.
Right, right.
But I actually think that you don't need to necessarily park hop right now.
Right.
I would suggest doing one park and just being and just going all day and having a great time. And the days
Right.
are even short. I mean, it's 9 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Right.
That's not a long day to be at the parks, really.
Right.
From rope drop to close.
True.
And so you can really have a good time there and get
Right.
a lot done.
Right. Especially in a month once they open up, Avengers Campus, and then, just like you said, do one full day at Disneyland and one full day at Disney California Adventure Park.
Good point.
Yeah. So anything I didn't cover that you think?
No, I think we covered everything.
Was it too detailed?
No, actually, I think this is important because not a lot of people, even to this point, even though it's been open for a little over a week now, have been to Disneyland yet. There's plenty of people that still have trips planned in the near future, so it's good for them to know these things.
All right. So anyways, ta-da! That was our look.
Great job.
At our our visit for the reopening of Disneyland Resort.
Michelle, great job as always. Michelle always does the best trip recaps. Even though I handled the last couple, Michelle does a much better job.
I don't know about that. This may have been a little bit too detailed.
No, that was good.
Anyway.
So that is a look back at our return to Disneyland for reopening weekend. All right, that was so much fun. By the way, if you have any questions, if you're planning a trip to Disneyland and want to know anything about our experience that we could possibly help you with, please hit us up either through social media or our Gmail account. We'd be happy to answer them for you. Again, great job, Michelle, with that recap. Now, we are running long because there was a lot to talk about, so let's briefly get through these Disney stories of the week as quickly as we possibly can. I'm going to start with, we learned about some guest favorite park spots on both coasts that will be reopening soon. This is from the Disney Parks blog. Get ready to enjoy some summer fun at the Disneyland Resort as we continue the phased opening of the hotels of the Disneyland Resort. We are thrilled to announce that Disney's Paradise Pier will reopen and welcome back guests starting on June 15th of 2021 with limited capacity. It's good that they're getting another Disney hotel reopening.
Right, exactly.
Also, guests can look forward to the return of some favorite dining locations, including the Napa Rose and Storytellers Cafe, starting on May 28th, 2021 at Disney's Grand Californian Hotel and Spa. So some more options for those of you who are staying either at the Disney's Grand Californian or Paradise Pier to have places to eat. Now, they're not going to have restaurants open at Paradise Pier right now. So if you're going to be staying there, you're going to want to head over to, you can head to downtown Disney or the parks, of course. But if you're looking to just go to a resort, they will allow you to go into the Grand Californian to get some food from. The GCH Craftsman Bar and Grill, the Hearthstone Lodge, Storytellers Cafe, Napa Rose, whatever.
Right.
So definitely cool stuff there. Also, they are allowing that there are going to be some places where you can get a QR code and they will actually deliver food to the lobby for you if you're staying on those locations, including from downtown Disney. So some other ways to get some food there. Also staying on the West Coast, also opening up out here soon. And this is actually from the Disney food blog, although I saw it on various different websites, that Disneyland has announced that the Alfresco Tasting Terrace will reopen on May 20th of 2021. It's another one of our favorite spots we like to get to. Now, you may remember that the Alfresco Tasting Terrace was turned into a pass holder only experience, a pass holder exclusive experience. And they're going to kind of stay with that because now it's going to transition into a legacy pass holder exclusive experience. So for those of you like us who are legacy Disneyland pass holders, you will have your access if you'd like to go to the Alfresco Tasting Terrace to try out some of the small plates, the Disney family wines that we love so much, and the specialty cocktails as well.
Yeah, so thrilled to hear that was happening.
Yeah, so good. Moving to the East Coast again, there's some favorite spots that are opening there as well. Again, from the Disney Parks blog, starting on May 16th, Chef Mickey's will offer an all-you-care-to-enjoy family-style dinner that will include no-touch appearances like snapping a selfie or waving hello with Mickey Mouse and some of his favorite pals as they make surprising appearances throughout there. So that's cool that Chef Mickey's is opening again for a dinner experience.
Right, I was going to say providing some more dinner or evening dining options.
And character experiences. Again, different way, but it's good that that's there for you. Also, if you ever dream of escaping to the beach and enjoying all the delicious food of an oceanside town, you'll be happy to know that Cape May Cafe at Disney's Beach Club Resort reopens on May 18th. So that's great as well. Now it's going to be a little different there as well. You'll find some of the old favorites and new changes with its signature service and quality. The restaurant will serve breakfast and dinner, but Minnie's Beach Bash Character Breakfast and the seafood and more dinner buffet will not be reopening, at least as of right now.
Right.
So you can still get some wonderful Cape May food there, but not exactly what you got in the past. So just know that going in. Finally, the guest favorite character dining location at Disney's Animal Kingdom theme park, Tusker House Restaurant, will reopen at some point this summer. They didn't give it an actual date, but they're letting you know that that is coming. So just be prepared for that, and you'll be able to enjoy the flavors of Africa and photos of Donald Duck and friends all dressed in their safari best once that reopens. So
cute.
that's cool. Yeah. So moving on to another story, staying at the Walt Disney World Resort, we learned about a few new things that are coming to the place where dreams come true for the spooky season. Again, from the Disney Parks blog, this Halloween season, a special event is brewing at Magic Kingdom Park. Float on over to Disney After Hours Boo Bash for a special 3-hour event that begins when the park closes. It's going to be a ghostly good time with party music, decorations, and character cavalcades galore. Guests young and old and immortal can dress in costume for the occasion and get their fill of Halloween candy, exclusive culinary offerings, spooktacular entertainment, favorite attractions, and more. And that will be running from select nights from August 10th through Halloween itself, October 31st. So it's not Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party, but it's
something.
It's the light version of that.
Yes.
It's something which is good. Again, another baby step back.
Right, exactly. And get to be in costume and everything. That's awesome.
Yeah, so that's fun. So we're looking forward to that as well. And finally, one more exciting story came out of Disney's halfway to Halloween announcements that they put out there on Friday. And this actually, I got this from Deadline.com. This Halloween, the Muppets will have tricks and treats in store as Disney Plus unveils Muppets Haunted Mansion.
Woo-hoo, yeah.
Yes. Hashtag Save the Muppets.
That's right.
The Muppets' first ever Halloween special, Muppets Haunted Mansion, will feature the Muppets cast, celebrity cameos, and new music and spooky amusement for families to enjoy later this fall. Muppets Haunted Mansion will take place on Halloween night when Gonzo is challenged to spend one night in the Haunted Mansion. So that's fun. I'm looking forward to that. Love more Muppets content. And it's my favorite classic attraction.
Right.
So this is you tie those two things together, and
Sweet.
I'm completely all in. I'm pretty sure you are as well.
Definitely looking forward to it.
Yeah. So that's it for the Disney stories of the week. However, we never leave you without giving you some sort of tip that might help you on your next vacation. And we always start with Michelle. One, because she's wonderful, awesome. She does the best trip recaps. She also has the very best tips. So let's get to it. Here is Michelle's tip of the week.
Well, you're so sweet. Thank you. My tip has to do with Disney Cruise Line. I mean, we're talking a little bit more and more as the wish is going to start taking on reservations. So wanted to kind of regroup with that topic and talking about if you're traveling with babies. All right. And some of the conveniences that you don't have to pack that could be available to you. So, for example, bottle warmers and sterilizers, they're actually on the prohibited list for the cruise. So it's always good if you're going to take a Disney cruise to check on what's prohibited. But they do have some available for free on a first come, first serve basis. The tip here for that in particular would be as soon as you board, go to guest services and make your request for that. Some other amenities that they have available is they have complimentary diaper disposal units that you could have for your room, as well as cribs and playpens, of course. Complimentary strollers are available through guest services on the Disney cruise ship, and at Castaway Cay, which is Disney's private island, they have complimentary wagons available. And the other thing I found interesting is they have fresh pureed vegetables that can be prepared in the main dining room or through room service upon request. So some things that if you are traveling with babies that can make things a little bit easier for you as well. They said you can bring baby food and formula, but put it in your carry-on items, and they have to be prepackaged, unopened, and don't require like food preparation in a kitchen in order to serve it. So there you go. If you are traveling on a Disney cruise with a baby, you don't have to pack and lug around all these extras. They will have them available for you.
That's important stuff because people are always wondering what they need to bring, especially for the really, really, really tiny ones.
Exactly.
And that's good knowledge for sure. And more than anything else, just ask if you have questions about it. Contact somebody from Disney Cruise Line. Call them up. There's sometimes some chat options out there. Just ask them or do some studying. And there's also of course the Plan Disney site where there's people who specialize in answering those kind of questions. Go there, ask them, and they'd be happy to help you out. So you are in the know when you get on board your Disney cruise. Once we can get back to Disney cruising, which we're very much looking forward to. So Michelle's tip, always the best tip. My tip this week, really quick, and we just talked about going to Disneyland and how much we walked at the Disneyland Resort, and a good portion of that was from the parking garage to the parks and from the parks back to the parking garage. I would say, the total between those two walking times was at least a mile between that. And some of you, may not want to walk that far to begin your day, or especially near the end of your day when you've already walked around the parks. Maybe the little ones are getting worn out or whatever. The good news is that what you could do is send one person back, dad, mom, whatever, with the other parent stay with the kids, whatever, and they go get the car, then go meet you over on Harbor Boulevard at the other entrance into the park, and wait there and have them come around and pick you up, because look, the kids can wear out, okay? So, or you could be worn out yourself. One way to do this is either drop them off when you get there and then you go park the car, or you go get the car and pick them up there at the end of the day. And that can just save a little time, a little bit more on your legs, and maybe there'll be a little less crabbiness, especially at the end of the day. Also know that when you go there and you park in the garage, when you get into where they normally do the parking trams when they were running, if you want to, rent a wheelchair or a stroller or whatever, they are all located within that spot there. You go through the temperature check, and then they have a location there right next to that with cash registers and everything set up, so you can rent those strollers, you can rent those wheelchairs, whatever you may need, right away. That way you don't have to wait till you get to the park, and go all that distance to get there.
Good point.
Another thing just
very
to keep in mind.
Very good tip.
Thank you. So that's it for this week. Next week, we'll be continuing our series counting down to the 50th birthday celebration of the Walt Disney World Resort. And once again, I'm putting Michelle in charge of another episode because she's going to bring her outstanding research to the podcast as we look back at some of the important moments in the history of the place where dreams come true.
Well, thank you. I'm looking forward to it. We're going to be talking about Disney's Land.
Yes. Ooh, very good. So
next for hopefully some special unknowns.
Cool. Yeah. So if you haven't listened to it already, go back to sometime last month when we did the first chapter of this. We're going to do one every single month in this series until we get to October 1st and the actual birthday celebration for the Walt Disney World Resort. And Michelle always does a great job with her research. So this will be a lot of fun, and I get to let her take over the podcast once again, which is always easier for me. Anyway, so we appreciate that you joined us today. In the future, you can find us most everywhere you get podcasts. However, the very best place to find us is on our own website, HyperionAdventuresPodcast.com. And while you're there,
take the time to sign up for the newsletter. There's some special things coming this week.
Yep, a couple extra things coming this week. It's just another way to be involved in the Hyperion Adventures podcast world. Another way is to follow us on social media. We're on Twitter at Hyperion Podcast, Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest at Hyperion Adventures Podcast. We have a YouTube channel. Hopefully you're subscribed there, but if you're not, just do a search for Hyperion Adventures Podcast, hit subscribe, and you'll know whenever we have a new video for you. And if you ever want to contact us for any reason, please hit us up at our Gmail account, HyperionAdventuresPodcast@gmail.com.
That's right. And we do love hearing from you, whether it's through our Gmail or a review. And we also really appreciate it if you tell a friend about our podcast.
Yes, that's the easiest way for people to get to know about this show. But that's it. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Hyperion Adventures Podcast. We look forward to sharing some time with you again next week. Until that time, I'm Tom.
I'm Michelle.
And we hope that you have a magical week.